language opposes the shifting of funding responsibilities to local governments. Page 8, line 291, the Environmental and Agricultural Committee proposed a comprehensive statement about the state's pending controversial stormwater and management regulations. This statement evolved during the conference. Please refer to the amendment attachment and see the new language on page 4. Page 10, line 374, the Finance Committee once again proposes an overarching statement entitled State and Local Fiscal Sustainability. The statement addresses the physical health of the state and calls on the state to grant counties equal taxing authority. Page 13, line 461, the Health and Human Resources Committee reaffirms its funding statement regarding state support for at-risk children and families. On page 14, line 499, Telecommunications and Utilities Committee revises its long-standing statement in support of deployment of universal affordable access to broadband. The statement reiterates the importance of state and federal assistance. And last but not least, on page 16, line 591, the Transportation Committee prioritizes importance of new state funding. Mr. President, committee representatives, staff, do you have questions? Please state your question.
I'd like to, that's more of a statement than a question. I'd like to refer back to...
Sir, I'm looking into it.
Sure.
Thank
I'm Don Sett. I'm chairman of the Botetourt County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
I've been coming to this conference for 6 years. Mr. Campbell recently made the statement that the General Assembly and others assume this organization to be a democratic organization rather than, I guess, non-biased organization, and he's trying to make some statements to the contrary of that. My only statement to you is, you know, in this current economic environment, it's not just the counties that are hurting. It's individuals that are hurting. All across our Commonwealth, people have not only lost their jobs, but those that do have jobs have seen their income go down and their expenses go up. And I just would like to come to one conference when we don't endorse a tax increase every single time. Every time, if you want to know why I consider this organization to be a democratic organization, it's because we always endorse every tax increase. I realize that our job is to try to get as much money to the localities, the local governments, as possible. But we've got to look out for the citizens in our counties. I applaud our position on unfunded mandates. I absolutely agree with that. But to call for a gas tax increase, to call for increased annual recurring revenues, that's tax increases. And I find it ironic in light of the overwhelming vote by the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia to elect 3 people, all Republicans, who all oppose tax increases, who support non-tax revenue growth, that we would still call for tax increases. I just think that's irresponsible. I think it's the reason why most people consider us to be more concerned about the localities rather than the individual citizens in our Commonwealth. So I intend to vote against that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, Tom Mellon, Washington County Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Just want to say one thing we talked about in the resolutions committee. One of our responsibilities as local elected officials is to be able to tell our state what it costs for us to operate, and to not, you know, whether we and when we have invite people to come to our state and we can't provide them adequate restroom facilities, and you know, we're not doing our job as elected officials by not saying what our problems are and what it costs for us to operate our government. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Anyone else? Mr. President, hearing or seeing no other person to speak, I move the adoption of the 2010 legislative program as presented.
With the amendments.
With the amendment included. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Second.
We have a motion and a second on this issue. You ready? Everybody, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. 2 nays? 2 nays. I heard 2 nays.
So duly recorded. In closing, I want to thank every member of the committee who has worked so hard, who has presented themselves to VACo, to Richmond, to the Homestead, and many conference calls to put this legislative program package together. I want to thank the VACo staff. They work tirelessly, and Mike Edwards works night and day. But I only found out yesterday, Mike's not doing all the work himself, he's got elves. It's not well known, but Mike has elves when he gets here to the homestead, and he has to reproduce or produce a new document overnight. He calls upon those. So, just in closing, thank you all for all the hard work. Thank every supervisor for what you do in your respective districts. And please remember to volunteer to serve on VACo committees. You have the form and you can pick them up outside if you don't have. So please do that and be a larger part, if you can, in what goes on in VACo and in your county. Thank you so much.
I think you took mine back.
And by the way, oh, did? Thank you. You want me to test it, brother? No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Next, nominating committee, Rudy Butler. Oh, wait a minute, I forgot something. Rudy, stay right there. I forgot other committees, bylaws committee. Jim? Sorry. Sorry.
Mr. President, on behalf of the bylaws committee, which the president appointed earlier this year, they reviewed the VACo bylaws and recommended to the board of directors for their further recommendation several minor changes to our bylaws. Essentially, the changes would clarify the tenure served by past presidents of VACo, and then a couple of small modifications which will allow committees to meet either electronically or telephonically, consistent with the modern communications systems. You did receive notification of these bylaws in a timely manner, and so it is now before the membership to be considered amendments to the bylaws.
Do we have a motion on the bylaws recommendations?
So moved.
We have a motion to accept them. Is there a second? Second. And seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?